from the 37th parallel on America's haunted highway, it's Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange.
Welcome back, everybody, to Pixelated Paranormal, episode number 21.
Yay!
Yahoo! We've got a lot to talk about on this episode. We're going to start off talking about what to do when you get molested by a ghost, what you should not do when your wife stops putting out, why men are so cranky, and then maybe a little bit about the old Travis Walton case. So we'll just kind of see what happens. Lots to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
It may be a short show, however, because we are without Rob. Rob is on a brief hiatus right now, so we can't wait till he returns. But you know what? We'll just do it without him for now.
He's here in spirit.
He's here in spirit. Hopefully, though, not like a spirit that wants to touch your dinghy.
Well.
So anything new with you right now, man? Any new exciting news or anything?
No, not really. I mean, I think when we tried to record this earlier in the week, I discussed that for our fundraising event that we did, the Special Olympics, that our team collectively raised over $1,000 towards Special Olympics.
Yeah, as of the day, without Khan's, with Khan's donation, he was going to get from the doctor, it was going to be $1,070. On the 4th.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
that's good. That's been a pretty good deal for us, man. I can't wait till next year. Do it even bigger. So if anybody doesn't know what we did, every year they do a polar plunge, and it is a Special Olympics fundraiser. You raise as much money as you can, and then you do a 1 to 3 mile run, like fun run, and then you jump in the lake no matter how cold it might be. And this year it was 38 degrees.
Yeah, 38 degrees, and last year it was like 23 degrees, and to be honest with you, I couldn't tell a fucking difference between 23 degrees and 38 degrees.
There's no difference.
No.
It just hurts. It's just, after a certain point, it just becomes pain. It's like you jump in and your lizard brain kicks in as soon as you hit that cold water, and all you can think of is flail and don't breathe till you get to the top, and that's pretty much it.
I was thinking don't drown, but
well, hey, that's another good one too. Survive. I think survive is the key word that went through my head. Just go, don't die. Well, should we just go ahead and jump into the news now, you think?
Yeah, let's get some fire in the pants and some fire in the sky.
I like what you did there. So first up in the news for me, the sexy ghosts have struck again. And for some of you may remember Preston talked about the Oklahoma Thunder basketball player Metta World Peace being molested by ghosts. Gosh, when was that? It's been a while ago.
That was September, October of last year.
Yeah. Basically, they were getting ready for a basketball game, and they were staying at the Skirvin Hotel in Oklahoma City, and apparently there's a ghost there named Effie, and apparently she's the ghost of a maid. Did we talk about that last time?
Yeah, we got about far enough into it to make the joke about how she liked the BBC.
God. Well, yeah, the ghost of Effie apparently is the residual spirit of a hotel maid who apparently was having an affair with the owner of the hotel and got pregnant. Then, supposedly, after she got pregnant, to hide her, he locked her in a room on the 10th floor, and when her baby was born, she became so depressed that she jumped out the window with the baby.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. But, it says now Effie will appear to men by themselves when they're in the bathroom alone, and as they're getting in the shower, she will just appear as a nude woman and oftentimes jump in the shower with them and have a little bit of sexy time. Or when they're by themselves, she will proposition them for sex and take them to the bed.
Or in Metta World Peace case, he was watching a George Clooney movie and she wanted some.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he said that they were all over me and I just laid there and accepted it. So he said some of them he will take to court because they did get a little bit rowdy. But I guess it's a well-known haunted hotel, and even some of the Lakers that were playing that night that were in town for the game actually paid their own money to stay at different hotels because of all the ghost stories they had heard. So kind of an interesting deal.
They didn't want to catch a case of the Skirvin.
Ooh, the Skirvin. Didn't want to get a bad case of the Casper crabs. Well, back on February 5th of this year, the phantom pervert struck again, but this time it was all the way across the pond in England. And apparently there's kind of like a Dancing with the Stars style show right now called The Jump, where a lot of different athletes, winter athletes and non-winter athletes, are competing for different like snow sports, I guess. But another woman has, I should say a woman this time, has experienced the ghost molestation. And I guess during the filming of the first episode that aired on the 4th or the 5th, British Paralympic Kadina Cox had reportedly been laying in her room trying to fall asleep when she was, quote-unquote, penetrated by an unseen force. And I don't know if this guy was the roommate of hers or just in another room, but retired rugby star Gareth Thomas vouched for her, saying that she that she had this thing going in and out of her. She was she was experiencing a sleep kind of thing. I guess he means like maybe sleep paralysis. She just couldn't move. And, quote, she wishes it was a person because it was going in and out of her body. So I'm not laughing at her. I'm just laughing at the idea. I mean, it's funny until it happens to you, I guess.
Man, he was going in and out so fast, he got his ectoplasm all over me.
Why is your impression of her a hillbilly when she's from England?
That's all I got.
That's your go-to.
How about that?
Oh, man. No, you sidewalled me with that crazy chick. So, in other news, Bobby Brown actually had told Larry King, too, that he was having sex with ghosts at one time. Have you heard about that one?
No.
So, yeah, I guess he had a part in Ghostbusters, too, and I had no idea about that. But, I mean, back when I watched that movie, I probably didn't know who Bobby Brown was, but I guess he was a doorman for the hotel or something like that. But yeah, during that time, he'd bought a house, and while staying in the house, he said he woke up in the middle of a wet dream and had a ghost straddling him. And Larry King's like, "What did you do?" And he's like, "Well, I just kind of laid there, man. I mean, I couldn't get away, right? I couldn't get away from it."
Ride that wet dream, Bobby Brown.
Just finished it, I guess. Wet dream. But yeah, skeptics are quick to argue that it's impossible for humans to have sex with ghosts just because there are no ghosts, and what they're experiencing is just, different forms of sleep paralysis. But in all my many, many times of having sleep paralysis, I've never had any whoopee with a ghost, so
nope.
Consider myself lucky. And then there is a term for people who do want to have sex with ghosts, and they are called spectrophiliacs. Well, what do you got for news for us?
Well, I came across Florida man shoots new wife after not getting sex.
Oh.
Yep. In Lay Acres, Florida, Donald Royce expected something when he married his new bride, and when he didn't get it, he took matters into his own hands, and now Royce is in jail. Royce, 76 of Lay Acres, was arrested after admitted to shooting his wife after the two argued over their sleeping arrangements. Royce was reported that he was upset when his 62-year-old bride hadn't had sex for being married since August. The two had been together for 6 years before getting hitched. Royce told deputies that he didn't intend to shoot the woman and just wanted to scare her by shooting the mattress.
Good
but
God.
Instead, he hit his wife in the buttocks and the hip. How about that? Now, Royce has been charged with aggravated battery while his wife is recovering at home.
Now, couldn't that be considered to be a sex crime as well?
Yeah.
I mean, attempted rape, or I don't know. I mean, I'm no criminologist, but...
Yeah, I think attempted rape would be in there somewhere.
You would think. Aggravated rape, or aggravated attempted rape, something like that.
Man, she won't give me no booty, so I shot that bitch.
So I shot that booty. If I can't have it, nobody can. Well,
in their 70s?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be doing it, but I mean, the guy...
Viagra on something else, man.
What do you mean on something else? Plowing the field?
Yeah, to go pulling out a 45.
Oh, yeah. Poor gal. That's ridiculous. So, I mean, how much time is he doing? Did it say? Is he going to be in there for a while?
It didn't say. So, I mean, I would assume that she would have to press charges, so for him to actually do jail time.
Yeah, that's true. But, I mean, I don't know how you're going to make things any hotter than they would already be if you're going to pull a gun out and say, damn it. I want it and I want it now. And she's just like, oh, well, in that case, I was just waiting for you to pull out a firearm. Well, that segues nicely into my next quick little news blip here. And, I had the perfect explanation as to why this man lost his temper and got a little bit angry.
Why is that?
Preston, have you yourself ever become moody, angry, short-tempered, or for no reason just lashed out at your loved ones?
Yeah, probably almost every day.
Well, chances are, sir, you were manstrating.
Ooh.
I used to joke around a lot back when I'd get, just irritated or pissy for no reason. I used to joke around a lot with Shayla and her family about whenever I'd be crabby or in a bad mood, and I'd say, you know what, I'm menstruating, damn it, I'm on my menstrual cycle, and they're like, what's that mean? And I said, if that means basically once a month for no reason, I'm allowed to be crabby or angry or moody or eat whatever the hell I want and say whatever the hell I want with no repercussions. That's exactly what menstruation is.
So I got a question real quick. So you know how when women spend enough time around each other that their cycles sync up? Mm-hmm. Do you think because we've spent so much time together that our man cycles are we menstruate around the same time?
On a serious note, there's a lot of science behind that. Obviously, there's plenty of silence. Silence.
Sorry, there's a lot of silence on it.
It's not the 30s anymore. There's no more silence about that. There's a lot of scientific research done about, obviously, women's cycles.
Syncing up. Yeah.
Yeah, so it could be because, again, in all seriousness, there's been a lot of studies lately saying that men actually can have not really a menstrual cycle, but actually go through the same kind of thing, like a male PMS. So basically, if your testosterone levels go up too high and they kind of spike, or if they go too low, that can cause your mood to completely change. You can get real pissy, real angry, you can get real sentimental. But yeah, basically it can cause all the things to happen, and you can have the quote-unquote PMS just as a woman may have. It doesn't say anything about bloating or any of those unfortunate side effects, so still I think the ladies have it, and by no means are we poking fun at, female menstruation and the woes that come with it, but yeah. Essentially, men can have all the same side effects as women do when it comes to having the PMS. I'm waiting for you to be like, yeah, but they can't bleed out of their penises or anything. But okay. Yes, Preston, they can.
Oh, what? We have bleeding penises?
Now, this isn't quite the actual menstruation, but there is I guess you call it a parasite that can infect people and cause them to bleed from their penises during puberty. So in a lot of tropical regions where people work in wet places, kind of like rice fields or rice paddies, it's possible for them to pick up a schistosome, which is actually a parasite that can get infested inside the urinary tract or the intestines by the Schistoma hematobium and causes young boys between the age of 13 and 21 to actually bleed through their penises. And because of a lot of these areas being a little more uneducated than some first world countries, a lot of the local people think it's just like a male version of female menstruation, and they just call it menstruation.
I'm at a loss. I don't even know where to go from here. What the fuck do you do with that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you just let it run its course and then maybe pee it out. So,
hey, do you know there's that phobia that develops in Korea and Japan where somehow the man gets a fear of vaginas and believes that the vagina's got teeth, and then they can't get it hard because whenever they try to have intercourse, they feel like it's going to eat their dick or something, and they freak out, and so that's an actual phobia.
There you go.
There you go.
The more you know.
The more you know by Pixelated Paranormal.
Yeah, there's a condom, supposedly, or an intervaginal device you can get. I think it was in some of the African countries where a lot of rape was happening from just, rebels and whatnot. And you would imagine kind of like a plastic tube that would be right about the same size as the man's penis, and then it would have upward-facing barbs. So as the man inserted himself into the woman, it would slide past the barbs, and as soon as he tried to pull out, they would basically get caught. And then it'd be proof that you tried to rape somebody because once the woman detached the device, they'd go to the hospital and find that thing on the guy's dong. So, yeah, that sounds pretty horrible. But you know what? If you're going to rape somebody, you probably deserve to have a little little dingle dong thing on your
on your dingle dong.
On your dingle dong. Oh man, that went left really quick. So, well, I think you got any more news? Is that good for you?
I'm all penised out.
You're all penis. Me too. That's enough penis talk for one episode, if that's even possible. So, okay. Well, in the spirit of revisiting some of our past topics, I wanted to elaborate a little bit more on the Elisa Lam case. You remember that one?
I do. The girl that got into the elevator and was acting like she was possessed, and then several days later they found her body in the water storage tank on top of the hotel, and they really never could figure out how she got in there or how she got up there because like the video feed had cut out and it was kind of a mystery.
Yeah, that's the one. Thanks for the recap. Perfect. Yeah. Save me some time. If you guys haven't heard about the story, just Google Elisa Lam. The name is spelled Elisa, last name Lam. She was a college student from British Columbia University. So, yeah, I bring it back up because I've got another story I'll talk about here in just a minute that kind of relates to it as far as how mysterious it is. But yeah, so she was found in one of the water tanks on top of the hotel. And this is the weird thing. Here's the specifics about the water tanks again. The tanks were on platforms that were about 4 feet off the roof. The tanks themselves were like, I think, 8 feet tall. So that's a total of about 12 feet up off the roof itself, right? Her body was found floating inside with the clothing off and floating next to her along with, I think, her bag as well. But what's weird is, again, it's argued that she herself would have had no way to open up the lid of those water tanks to get herself in there because, and I'm not trying to sit here again and say men are stronger than women because there are plenty of women who can kick my ass, but it took, 2 full-grown men couldn't get the lid open. They actually had to have somebody come in and, I think, cut an access hole in the top of the water tank to actually get the body out. And the man who actually discovered the body was barely able to get the little viewing port opened up by himself. So, again, it took a maintenance man with a 10-foot ladder to get up and look into the viewport. How she could have scaled it on her own is unknown to a lot of people. And after unhooking 2 different lock latches, again, they had to cut a hole into the side of it to actually retrieve the body. But here's what's weird. The weight was too heavy for her to open by herself, yet she was found in it, but the lid itself was actually pretty much sealed shut still. And what's stranger yet is during the autopsy, they said there were no signs of physical trauma on the body. There was no stress, no cuts, no scrapes. She had one abrasion on her knee, but they think that's unrelated. But what's strange is they just recently said during the toxicology report, they could only get limited results because of a limited supply of blood that was found in her body. And that wasn't something I knew before, is that her body was kind of drained of a lot of the blood that was in it, so they weren't able to conduct a full-on toxicology report, so they say, because of limited blood supply within the corpse.
So here's like a little factoid real quick that I learned from the Missing 411 books.
I'm glad you're getting into that. Perfect.
So in the back of your eyeball, there is a cavity that fills with a viscous jelly, and when that cavity fills up and swells up, that allows your eyes to regulate the pressure so that you can see differently when it comes to like low light or bright light or whatever it is. And that jelly in your eyes will retain any toxic substance that you put into your body. So, like, whenever they run a toxicology report, they're not really getting the sample from the blood. They're actually getting it from the jelly in the eyeball. So when they actually have to run tests on the blood to try to figure things out, it's because that all the jelly in the eyeball is not there. And so David Paulides said that 9 times out of 10 when they go to run these the toxicology reports, somebody has already removed that jelly from the eye because they didn't want whoever was doing that the screening or whatever to find what drug was in their system, so they sucked all that jelly out. That way, when you actually do the blood, that you're not going to find a lot of those toxins present because it won't be picked up in traces of the blood.
Man, what's great is you just did all my work for me. Because what I'm going to talk about next, I actually read in his one of his newest Missing 411 books called A Sobering Coincidence. But yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I was fortunate enough that Shayla's sister and brother-in-law for my birthday gave me David Paulides' Missing 411, A Sobering Coincidence. And so I kind of picked through it real quick just to get something to talk about for the show that would kind of relate somehow to aliens, because that's what we're going to talk about here in a minute, is another classic abduction story. But I think we'll get into it more later, but cattle mutilation has always been something that's been kind of fascinating to me, and it's kind of back in the news a lot lately. But what I'm getting at here with the Elisa Lam story is I've got another weird story about a water container. So on June 28th, 2002, somewhere in the San Luis province in Argentina, you have this well-known cattle rancher who's in charge of just producing and breeding cows, right? And he's got this Australian-style water tank, which, if I'm correct in my research, is one of these above-ground water tanks. It's kind of like a great big round, maybe 8 foot across, 8 foot diameter water tank that's probably about, I think, 6 foot high off the ground. And then a lot of times they've kind of got like a cylindrical lid that kind of points up at the top in the middle, like almost like a pyramid, but it's, round. I'm not a smart man, so I can't tell you what shape that is right now off the top of my head. But he had 19 of his cattle disappear, and when they finally found him, they were all inside this Australian-style water tank. So 19 head of cattle were found in a water tank. And they said, here's what's strange. These cattle would have had to climb a 5-foot fence, scale a security wall. Somewhere in there was an electrical fence they had to get past as well. Finally, they would have to lift up the lid that was about the size. I mean, you could probably shove a cow through it from what I read, but really it wasn't like a big hole where they could have just been like, whoopsie daisies, and fallen into the water tank. Of the 19 head of cow that were found, 9 had drowned in the water, and the other 10 were alive, but borderline hypothermic due to the freezing temperature of the water that had been collected in the tank and the amount of time that they had been put in the tank. So that's weird. I know it's a short and sweet story, but how the hell do you get 19 cattle into a water tank?
Teleporter. Hello.
Right.
Beam me up, Scotty.
Right. They said the strangest thing, like I mentioned a minute ago, was they had to crawl through, this electric fence, climb a 5-foot border fence, scale the security wall, get the lid off of the water tank, and then put the cows in the tank. And you and I, we're not smart men by any means, but we know cows weigh a lot, right? Mm-hmm. I'd like to think if a cow was on top of these water tanks, they're usually made out of like sheet metal and sometimes a reinforced, heavy-duty plastic. If a cow crawled across these water tanks, it would dent it. It would cause some, disturbances to the overall structure of the water tank. But
especially if 19 of the fuckers are on top.
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe one cow was just so graceful they could just do all those things. But 19 cows managed to go over a 5-foot fence, through an electric fence, up a security wall, and into a water tank without causing any damage to the surface, the fences, or the wall.
And here's the other, you and I couldn't pick those cows up, because those cows, what's the average weight of a cow? 700 pounds, 800 pounds, especially if they're bred for for meat.
Right.
These aren't like milk cows are going to be actually more, they're going to be heavier. So you would have to have some type of equipment to actually lift these fuckers up and put them in there. So it's not like just something 2 guys could do.
Right. I mean, a typical cow. So I think if a cow is pregnant, I think they weigh at least 1,500 pounds. I think an average weight's probably 1,200 to 1,800 for a male. So,
yeah.
I mean, in hell, let's just say even they were 700 pounds. It's still 700 freaking pounds of cow times 19, man. Mm-hmm. So what I really enjoyed about the books that David Paulides writes about the Missing 411 is he never really comes out and says, well, it was aliens, or well, it was this. He kind of leaves it to your imagination, but I think if you had to have an open mind and you had to play the card of the paranormal, I would say, you have classic cases of alien abduction or alien cattle abduction where they'll pick up the person or the cow or whatever and then drop them back somewhere near where they were, but sometimes it's kind of wrong. Sometimes, you hear people disappearing and then the body being found with, the pants on backwards or the shoes on the wrong feet, or, the belt is around the waist, but the pants are folded up next to the body. So weird circumstances. So, I mean, you could easily say, I suppose, if you want to get kooky, that they just sucked up 19 cows in a field and did their thing. And then they're like, oh shit, where do we put them? I don't know. Just go to, quadrant C, sector 4. And then, coincidentally, that was inside of a water tank. Yeah. So that's kind of shitty, man. But yeah, I mean, as far as finances go, that's a pretty big loss, man. A cow is not a cheap animal to raise or sell. So the guy probably took a really big hit. But that story David mentions is from a book from Chris O'Brien called Stalking the Herd. And it's,
yeah.
I wanted to pick it up and read it, but I don't know if I will. It didn't get great reviews. A lot of the reviews said that the first story is amazing, the second story is okay, the last story is good, but everything in the middle is kind of the same scenario. On this day, at this place, at this country, at this time, 5 cattle were found dead. They had these markings, kind of crazy. And the next story, and the next story, and the next story. So may not pick that one up, but yeah, I mean, that's my kind of parting words. So we were going to talk about aliens, and I read this story and thought, it kind of fits nicely. But it reminded me of the Elisa Lam story, how she was found in a water tank, and that we couldn't really be explained how she got there.
Yeah, Scotty accidentally put in the wrong math equation in the Porter thing and beamed them inside the water tank.
Right. At least it wasn't like Montauk where they beamed a cow and it was like half in the barn, half out of the barn.
Right.
That could be even worse. Yep. So, I mean, with that, getting into aliens, that's kind of been our topic of choice lately. What do you got for us? You wanted to talk about the old Travis Walton story,
Yes. Huh? So let's take a moment to discuss the abduction of Travis Walton. I first heard about this story when I was a little kid because I watched the movie Fire in the Sky. That was it D.W. Sweeney, D.B. Sweeney, Patrick Stewart, the guy off of Terminator. Remember the liquid metal Terminator guy?
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember watching that movie, and then at the end when it's like based off a true story. And then I was like, holy crap. And then I always thought that that's exactly how it happened. And then, later on, started reading up on old Travis Walton and some other things, and then realized that, Hollywood took its, liberties with it. But
yeah, as they do, yeah.
Yeah. So let's just get into it. So the Travis Walton UFO incident refers to an American logger who claims he was abducted by aliens on November 5th, 1975, while working with a logging crew in the Appalachia Strategic National Forest in Arizona.
Rob's not here, so I'm going to have to take this one over. It's the Appalachia.
Yeah, we're going to go with it. It's what I do.
Appalachian.
So if you don't remember, basically there was like a party of 5 or 7 men, and they were contracted to basically thin out the trees in the park. So they had these older trees that were dying off, and they needed to cut them down so that new growth could take place. And some of the members were longtime friends. One of them in particular, Alan Dallas, didn't particularly get along very well with Travis Walton.
Right.
But so they're working all one day. They're working all day, and they're working like 15, 16-hour shifts because they're behind on their contract. And as they're finishing up the day, they're driving back. It's late at night, and off into the distance, they see this red glow above the tree line, almost like a fire. And this road wraps around right to where this fire would be, and this is basically the only way in or out of this forest. And so while the men are freaking out, saying, "Oh my God, I don't want to do it," basically Mike Rogers, the leader of this crew, says, "We got to go, guys, because if there's a fucking fire here, we're just going to have to man up and sleep in this forest tonight, or we're going to have to drive through it."
Right, because the fire, if there was a fire, that just takes their entire job away from them too. If it burns down that whole forest, then they just lost all that work and all that whole contract. Lost that
contract. Yeah,
right. It was the Apache. Hang on, real quick. The Apache National Forest. We're both idiots. I kept thinking the Appalachians. That's not anywhere near where this happens. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So they go around the bend, and what they thought to be a fire was actually a giant UFO that was glowing red. And so they just kind of all of a sudden just stop the fucking truck. Like, they're just like, whoop, and they're all like, oh my God, what are we, what? And they're freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
Walton wakes up and he's just like, hold on. And he gets out of the truck and they're all yelling at him to get his dumb ass back in. But he's just, he gets out and now he's kind of underneath this crap and it's kind of floating above him. And he's just like, like, wow, what? Oh my God, it's a UFO. And then this blue light just shines on him and he becomes paralyzed. He starts to levitate off the ground a little bit and there's like this loud crash noise, like this pop. Mm-hmm. And then they see him fly 100 feet back and he, falls into this brush and they all think that he's dead at this point because, they don't see him breathing anymore and it was a pretty far to be flung. And like a bunch of little pussies, they take off. They're driving down the road. They're hauling ass out of there.
Like any good friends do.
Yeah. And I think it was Kenneth Peterson, who was kind of like this church-going boy, was like, I can't believe we did that. We got to go back. And so then Mike Rogers was like, yeah. So he kicks everybody out of the truck because he's like, if there's something bad happens, there's something bad back there, I don't want the five of you to get caught up with this. And so he leaves them all on the side of the road. He goes back, and they can't find Travis.
Right.
He's looking all around. Travis is gone. So he goes back up, picks up the rest of the guys, and they end up going to some diner in town, and they ended up calling the police. The police come out, and then they end up calling a special investigator, and I can't remember his name, but he, at that time, had no unsolved cases. So every single murder case he had ever been called on, he was the man. He was always going to get the job done. So he comes in from, I think it was Wisconsin or we're going to go with Wisconsin because that sounds, or Montana. He drives all the way down, and he does the interview and was just like, man, these guys are full of shit. I think they just fucking murdered their friend and left them in the forest somewhere. So a couple days go by and they're searching for Travis and nothing, and everything's kind of heating up in the town. Everybody believes that all these guys had basically killed their friend. They end up doing a polygraph test because after 3 days of searching, they can't find the body.
5 days.
What was that?
It was 5 days. He was missing for 5 days.
He was missing for 5 days, but on the third day, they still hadn't found him, so they decided to do the polygraph test.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, right, sorry.
Yep. And each one of those tests, except for Alan Dallas, came back conclusive that they were telling the truth. Alan, he was kind of all over the place. He was very kind of nervous and jittery, and he was like one of those guys who thought that the government was out to get him anyways. So it wasn't that he wasn't being truthful. They just said that his readings were all over. He was too nervous that they couldn't get a clear reading.
Right, inconclusive.
But the rest of them were conclusive enough that they're like, yeah, these guys didn't do it. They're telling the truth.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, well, shit, what do we do now? So Rogers is over, he's back at his house with his wife, and he gets a phone call late at night, and there's this voice. And it's very raspy, and it's like, Mike, it's Travis, man. I'm naked, and I'm in this telephone booth, and I don't know where the fuck I'm at, but come get me. So he's like, oh my God, it's Travis. And so he gets a bunch of people in a truck, and they're driving like 2 towns away, I think it was. They eventually find him, and they do some hypnotic regression, and that's where like all this comes back, because without the regression, Travis just says, I don't know what happened. Mm-hmm. How long have I been gone? They're like, Travis, it's been 5 days. He's like, what? So they finally put him through this hypnotic regression, and he tells this tale of waking up in this ship, and it's very like organic like, and it doesn't look like a normal hospital room or anything. It's just very odd. It's very alien. Mm-hmm. And these small beings with very kind of lizard-like skin, they're beady eyes, like your typical gray, but he described them not really having a gray color, but more like a tan color with just like rough skin.
Right.
They're dragging him across this spaceship, and then they end up putting him on this table and doing these bad experiments to him, and he's freaking the fuck out. And then they get done with their experiments, and they drop him off in this like next to this phone booth, and zoop, they're going wherever they go. And that's it. That's the end of his story. And then, like a couple years later, he starts writing all these books, the Travis Walton Experience. He's doing more interviews, and apparently he has this other regression. And then it comes out that first regression was more like a screen memory. Mm-hmm. That the aliens didn't really do any experiments on him. Those little gray reptilian fuckers. They were just like the worker bees. Mm-hmm. And so he wakes up and he's running around the ship and he sees these little guys chasing after him and he's freaking the fuck out. He's like ducking down these little dwarf doors and running in and out. Yeah. And they eventually grab hold of him. And when they land inside this hangar and they drag him out, and there's like this giant complex, and there's all these buildings, and there's all these little UFOs and all these little fuckers running around, and they take him inside another hangar, and there's these very tall aliens with kind of a gold skin, kind of shiny. They're bald, and they look very evil. He describes them as very malevolent. Uh-huh. And they basically strap him on the table. They put this laughing gas on him. He starts like hallucinating, and they're kind of like laughing over him. They do their experiment, and then they drop him down. So 10 years later, his story changes a little bit. It gets more detailed. We went from these little gray aliens now to these giant, tall, gold fucking aliens, and that's where the story just kind of stopped. But then in like 2001, he was on a talk show where I can't remember the name of the talk show, but they did a polygraph test.
That was in now. Are you going to talk about the one in 2008, or was there just one that you found?
No. So 2008. Do you have the name of the show?
On 2008, he was on the game show called The Moment of Truth.
Yes, that's it.
Okay,
and he failed. He failed the polygraph test.
Right. He was asked. What was the question? On November 5th, 1975, were you abducted by aliens? And he answered yes. And the lie detector came back and said that was a lie.
Yeah. And so it kind of past that point, that's where the skeptics came out and say, "See, we told you this guy was full of shit all along."
Right.
You look back at who's the other guy, the communion guy,
Whitley Strieber.
He started out kind of the same way. Like his very first story was very believable, and then it's like, oh crap, I got to make more books, I got to do this, I got to do that, and so now I'm just kind of adding on to it.
Right.
I don't think Travis is lying, just because if you look at the testimony from the other guys, their lie detector test came back that something happened.
Right, and they've been tested several times since. It wasn't like there was just one. It's been so many of them that have come back and been retested and retested. And it's always the same. The one guy, what's his name, Alan, the guy that had a problem with Travis?
Yes, Alan Dallas.
He is the one that comes back inconsistent most times, but everybody else, the story's the same. All of them tell the same story. Alan just never comes back as being conclusive. Everybody else has come back the same time. They pass it every time.
Yep. So, I don't know. I believe something happened. I think that... most abductees claim they have screen memories anyway, so something happened that was so traumatic. Not only does your mind kind of convolute it and break it apart so you don't, really remember every detail, but then I think that, this whole screen memory thing, like why some people think they see owls and things like that,
right?
They get implanted on there so that, maybe we won't know the whole truth. So.
Right. Well, I did some reading too, because like you said, this story's always been fascinating to me. I remember watching Fire in the Sky on like Cinemax or whatever channel, probably back in like the early 90s.
Yes.
And it was one of the most terrifying movies you've ever seen. So if you guys haven't watched Fire in the Sky, it's on Netflix right now. So
it is.
Do yourself a favor and devote that hour and a half or whatever it is and watch that show. I mean, lights off, late at night, no distractions, put your phone away. It's definitely a good movie. The part that kind of sucks is that the movie you watch, if you want to call it, it's a half-truth because they left some things out, because I guess back then that was right around the same time that Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. Was that what it was?
Third Kind.
Thank you. Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out. A lot of the movie and media people said, well, the story's a bit too similar to Close Encounters, so we need to have the screenwriter kind of change a couple things and make it more flashy and more provocative. So there are some artistic liberties in there, because the story also talks about when he's on one of the tables at one point on the ship. The Greys are in there, and they're doing some experiments on him at that point. And then the Greys leave the room, and then a humanoid walks in. It looks very much like a human, but he has a spacesuit and a helmet on. And then he actually lets Travis off the table and escorts him into a room and shows him like a big window port, and he can see the Earth, and he can see some other parts of space. And they left that out of the movie as well. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I guess if you're wanting to tell a movie, if you want to do a screenplay and less of a story, that's kind of convoluted and doesn't really add to it. But
and then the dead rotting bodies on the spaceship was added in to make it more scary.
Yeah, and shit, I mean, it was it was really damn scary. But
I was like, I don't want to get abducted by aliens.
Right. So something else that I had been reading about. We talk about what happened to him again. They followed the ball of light, the fire in the sky, quote unquote. And then when they find the craft in the forest, of course, Travis gets out. And he runs up to the ship. And then all they see is a blue light that comes down and hits him. And moments later, he goes flying, 100 feet back. And then the UFO. Some reports say the UFO stayed there, and some say the UFO disappeared. Did it disappear after it shot him?
I read that it disappeared, but then like with the movie, you don't see anything because the guys just like a bunch of pussies just take off. So we don't.
Okay, there we go.
Movie,
so
they kind of left it open.
Yeah, that part's left out. So right. So something hits him. He goes flying back, and then they leave. They come back, and he's gone. What he says again in later hypnotic regressions is that he doesn't think now that they actually had done experiments on him, but instead, whatever propulsion system they were using, when it fired down to let the UFO, take off, he got in the way, and that's why the UFO was just floating there, like hoping he'd get out of the way, like, move, you damn idiot, I'm trying to go here. Mm-hmm. And finally, the propulsion system shot off, it hit him, caused him to raise up because it's an anti-gravity propulsion system. And then when the UFO tried to take off, it shot him across the forest. So he says instead of having experiments done on him, he now believes that they took him on the board the ship and they did some, reconstructive surgeries or some kind of like medical aid for him. And then that wasn't quite good enough on the ship. So then they had to take him all the way back to this structure, wherever it was. And then that's why he met some of the other aliens, because they had to basically patch him up because they're like, fuck, we can't just kill this guy and took off, because we can't kill the guy and take off because we do that. And now there's clear evidence that, oh yeah, these burns and these markings don't match anything on Earth. So of course we're caught, it's like hitting a deer. It's like taking out a brand new Tesla and then hitting a deer and then thinking, crap. So yeah, that's what happened. They took him away, did some experiments on him, did some medical aid on him and then returned him back to Earth in one piece. So pretty interesting either way you slice it. But the problem you have with these stories, just like Strieber, is they're great stories and they start off pretty innocent, but the more you go year after year, decade after decade, they start to get more convoluted and they almost seem more like a cash grab at some point. And a lot of skeptics are saying the problem you have with Fire in the Sky or the Travis Walton story is something that's not oftentimes documented is the National Enquirer actually gave Walton and his coworkers a $5,000 prize for the best UFO case of the year. And that's after they, passed the polygraph test so the story could then be called true. And so, I mean, either way, maybe it was a hoax, maybe it wasn't, but either way, it's documented supposedly that they got a $5,000 payoff for this story. And back in the 70s, man, $5,000 is a pretty decent chunk of change, so can't really argue that. And then the other part they're saying is that during that time, I think just a few weeks before he disappeared and was abducted, there was actually a TV movie on NBC called The UFO Incident that aired probably, I think it was 2 weeks before he disappeared. And this was a made-for-TV movie about the Betty and Barney Hill abduction. So they're saying that an investigator actually thinks what happens is he saw that movie, And then he wanted to basically make up his own story and be famous like they were. So it caused him to become one of those instant celebrities, And of course, now the guy probably lives off the money he makes doing conventions and everything else. So there you go.
There you go. Fire in the pants, fire in the sky.
Fire in the pants, fire in the sky. Yeah, but if you guys haven't seen Fire in the Sky, really do yourself a favor. It's a good movie, nonetheless. True story, fake story. It's a pretty good one, man. I remember when Shayla and I were still just dating or going out, what have you. We weren't engaged or married. I bought the movie at Best Buy when we were out on a date and went back to her house and watched it, and she thought the same thing. Like, holy crap, it's a pretty damn scary movie. So I don't know where my DVD is right now. I tried to find it before we recorded this, and I think it's disappeared. I'm sure we probably let somebody borrow it at her job or my job at some point. So
Netflix it up.
Yeah, just Netflix it, guys. It's worth a watch. Well, I think that's it for today, guys. We kind of, like I said earlier, have a bit of a shorter show, but hopefully there's some pretty fun stuff in there for you, and we'll get Rob back in here, and I think we'll continue this rabbit hole of alien abductions. I've got a couple really good books. I picked up the communion letters from that used bookstore, and it could just be batshit craziness, or it could be some pretty good stories in there about people getting abducted. But I'm going to read that next and kind of cover some of those because they're still fun to read and listen to, even if they're not real.
There is, I'm debating. So I came across this when I was looking up news stories today. So for next show, I'll give you a little tease. I'm either going to talk about a famous abduction case in England that just celebrated its 40th anniversary.
Ooh.
Or I came across this crazy time slip story that came out of England as well, called The Vertical Plane.
Huh.
So I don't know. We'll see. But I came across this story and I was just mesmerized by it. So I don't know. We'll do it. So
there you go. Something for the future, perhaps. If it's not next episode, we'll talk about it at some point. So, well, you got anything you want to plug?
Our good buddy Big Steven and Brady, their podcast O&D, one dropped not too long ago. So they have a new episode out. So download it, listen to it, check it out. Then Rich's, what's his?
Yeah. Rich's Sports Car Unleashed. It's about race cars.
Go check out that.
I'm sure everything that goes along with that. I'm not a big race car fan, Rich, so I'm sorry I don't listen to it, man, but I'm sure it's great. If you're involved, bud, I'm sure it's just the cat's meow. It's probably the Ferrari Testarossa of podcasts. See what I did there? I referenced the one car I know that goes fast.
And then Mark's Pixelated Sausage Cast.
Yes, listen to that. If you enjoy anime and video games and pop culture and fun stuff like that, check out Mark.
Or just want to hear the voice of an angel.
There you go. I mean, that's always good, too. If you like the angelic voice of Mark, then that is for you. And if you like even more Mark and even more Rob, and you want to throw in some Corey and a little bit of Rich, listen to Pixelated Radio. They do a video game podcast quite often, and it's always a good time. Even at its worst, it's still one of the best. So there you go.
There you go.
What you watch any good movies lately? Any good TV shows?
No. Amazon just put on the first 3 seasons of Unsolved Mysteries, so we're going back and watching the shit out of that.
Shit, man.
Harmon Quest. If anybody has a CISO account, which you can get a free 7-day trial on Amazon for your Amazon Prime. Harmon Quest is from the producer of Rick and Morty, and it's a roundtable of his friends playing Dungeons and Dragons, which is then animated.
Oh, nice.
It's pretty fucking hilarious. So check out Harmon Quest if you're a big D&Der.
Sweet.
We one day might get back into doing that, or we might not ever do it again. We don't know.
We'll see. Shayla and I just watched the 1.5-hour long pilot episode of Legion on FX.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good, man. It's so trippy, and the soundtrack is great. Cinematography is really fun, and it's one of those that you spend a little bit of time saying, what the hell just happened? But it's totally worth the ride. So if you guys want to check that out sometime, definitely do. It's really fun. I believe it's supposed to tie into the actual X-Men Fox movie cinematic universe too. So that's kind of fun.
Which characters did they introduce in Legion?
Without ruining anything, because I don't know a whole lot about Legion. I know who he is. I'm not going to spoil it on the episode and let people know who it is, because I think it'll be a really fun reveal. Unless they just go into Wikipedia right now. But so far, it is just the character known as Legion so far. It's just him. They haven't introduced anybody else. But like I said, it's supposed to tie into the X-Men universe from the Fox movies. So,
ooh, speaking of which, so did you see the article that Deadpool 2, they casted Pierce Bronson for Cable?
Pierce Brosnan?
Yeah.
God bless your mispronunciations.
Yeah. 007?
Yeah, not the guy I would have imagined, man. I would have liked to have seen, Hellboy. Ron Perlman, man. He would have been a perfect freaking Cable, but of course.
Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah, I mean, him too, man. Either one. But yeah, the big production companies never listen to the fans when they're like, hey, guys, do this. It'd be perfect. I don't know, guys. I think Pierce Brosnan would be probably better. I know both those guys look like Cable, but let's get 007 in here. Let's
just put some gray hair on him and put a metal arm and forget the English accent and
oh jeez,
the old flabby body type. Nobody will know.
And that's going to be the kicker, man. If he has a British accent, he's not going to be Cable.
Yeah.
Jeez, man. Another good FX show. Speaking of another good FX show is going to be Taboo. If nobody's watched Taboo. I think they're about 4 or 5 episodes in. I can't really tell you what the hell's going on with that show, but it's fun. If nothing else, man, it's a good show.
And then I know I busted my biscuit, and I'm pretty sure Shawn busted his too, with the reveal over Super Bowl of Stranger Things Season 2.
Biscuits were busted, man. My egos were toasted by the time that was revealed. Yeah. Holy shit. That is a Pixelated Paranormal favorite right there. God, and it's going to air. It debuts on Halloween.
I don't know if I can wait that long.
You're going to have to, bud. You ain't got no choice. I guess you can rewatch that trailer a bunch, but
yeah, we should have a little opening Halloween night party for that.
Yeah, that'd be fun, man. I would totally do that. The 2 things I'm looking forward to the most this year is going to be Stranger Things and Rick and Morty. So I don't know. It'll be worth the wait. Definitely be worth the wait. So. Well, I think we could wrap it up there, man. I think we cussed and discussed enough. So,
got enough penis in there.
There's always penis somewhere when it's our show, even if the robotic penises. So, well, everybody, thanks for joining us, and we will catch you guys next time around.
The cast at Pixelated Paranormal would like to thank you for listening to this week's episode. Pixelated Paranormal is here to tell you tales of the fantastical, the strange, the unknown. Tales that will move you a little further down the paranormal highway. If you'd like to share your own listener story, we would love to hear it. You have 2 ways. 1, email us at pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. Again, that's pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, we have that set up too. Dial us at 707-523-4263. Again, that's 707-523-4263. We'd really love to hear from you. Again, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange.
And if you guys are still listening, right now is the time we normally put a little funny zinger of some of us flubbing up and saying really dumb shit that I normally cut out, but not this time. Instead, we want to give you a little fair warning. We're finally doing it. We are going to start doing our bonus episodes, and we're going to start off with probably 1 week from this episode. You'll see a bonus episode pop up. So, if you see that, come back and join us for Happy Hour with Shawn and Preston. It'll be a Pixelated Paranormal special that we're going to do periodically. And we're going to host some of our favorite podcast people from our local podcasts and the Pixelated community as well. We're going to have Big Steven and Brady from Oh Indeed, Preston and myself, and also Corey from Pixelated Radio will join us as well. So, It'll be a little bit different format, and who knows what we're going to talk about, because we kind of don't. I mean, Preston has an idea. I don't know what I'm going to talk about yet, but it's going to be fun, so show up. You going to say anything about that, or are you just going to smile and nod your head?
I'm just planning on getting fucking wasted during that show, making an ass out of myself.
There you go, folks. So come back and join us 1 week after you listen to this little beauty, and we'll give you something else to stick in your ear holes. So
we'll give you a shiny gem.
Yeah, until then, guys, what's something catchy to say? Keep it spooky.
Wubba-dubba-dub-dub.